And welcome back to Otaku no Video. As always, thank you very much for joining me, where today I am digging deeper into the anime series Infinite Ryvius. Now, if you haven't seen the show already, be forewarned, this will be a spoiler-full review, although I'm not going to go too much into specific plot details, but this is intended for those who have already watched the series. So, a few interesting themes. Ryvius is very much set in real space. This is more realistic, hard science fiction than most anime series out there. And that is shown in episode 1, where one of the first things we see is a ship of trainees get crushed and destroyed and killed in a training exercise. And the fact that the other kids come back from that and don't seem to have any particular emotional reaction to that. It's like that happens frequently. One of the big points is that space is dangerous. Space is difficult to live in and to work in, and that's just a fact of life. Now, once the terrorist event occurs and everyone starts moving onto the Ryvius, we see the overall plot emerge as we see these teenagers trying to sort of self-organize and live in space. And here's something I wanted to point out. A lot of the reviews I've read of Infinite Ryvius describe it as Lord of the Flies in space. And I think that's an inaccurate term. I mentioned this in my review of it, that it's really about characters who are trying to create society, trying to maintain a social structure in space. These kids, I call them kids and teenagers, but still, they very much want structure and society, and they're trying to find one that is most appropriate, whereas Lord of the Flies is about how we all degenerate into savages immediately. And that's illustrated by how the writers brilliantly, I think, structure the set of characters and introduce them to you and to the viewer in pieces, so that we have sort of 3 groups of characters. There are the group of friends that we kind of follow all the way through. There's the Zwei, the sort of elite students, and then there are the anarchists. And each one has a different perspective. The Zwei have a very top-down command and control perspective. That's what they've been taught. That's what makes most sense to them. The anarchists want a, shall we say, maybe a socialist structure, something that's much more broken down and much more sort of for the proletariat. And then the friends are more in the middle. They're actually not quite sure, but they want something more reasonable. And that's another remarkable thing about the show, is that this is about a bunch of characters doing their best in a bad situation. There are no experts here other than some folks who know how to work some of the systems. But everyone is thrown into a situation where they have to apply skills that they literally do not have yet. And so it's seeing how people react in that situation. So many anime series are about characters who have some powers or some abilities that they're learning how to control. This is something that probably none of them in normal life would ever need in the future. This ability to lead people and run large groups of people in this survivalist mode. So that's one of the reasons this is a very stressful show, both for the characters and for the viewer to watch, because all the characters are so out of their element. And that's perfectly illustrated when Julie, the head of the Zwei, decides to step down as leader. She feels she just can't cut it, and so she decides to stop leading. And I think that's an important point, is that when you try things, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you don't have the skills at the time to do what needs to be done effectively. And there's not necessarily any shame in that. And I appreciate the fact that Julie steps down, and while she does question whether that was the right decision, she is very firm that that's what she's going to do, and she's going to stick with that. And I think it's a very appropriate response to say, okay, this isn't working out, let's try something else. While also asking the question, was that the right thing to do? Who knows? It's done. Another remarkable thing about the series is their use of hallway shots. So often in anime series dealing with spaceship crews and such, you cut to shots of people in the hallway. Well, this show actually uses those shots to tell little stories, where you'll see characters doing things throughout there, and you'll see these little dramas act out over the course of the series. I think it was a brilliant use of the medium to say, hey, if we're going to have this content in the show, we might as well use it. Speaking of which, there's a lot of sex in the show. It's never on camera, but there are all these little references to characters sneaking away, doing various things, characters kissing in the hallway. There's one shot when everyone's gathering to eventually get onto the Ryvius, which shows a lot of mattresses that have been sort of laid down in the central area, and you kind of know what folks are getting up to. And I want to praise the show's creators and staff for saying, this is a bunch of teenagers all thrown together. Of course they're going to be sleeping around. Is that the best thing they should be doing? No, but it would happen. It's very reasonable. So they're going to make that part of the story without making it front and center. That's not the, they're not trying to make any points about that, so there's no point in showing those directly on screen. Instead, we'll make references to it, we'll indicate that it's happening while we get on with the actual story. And the story is also worth a mention while we're at it. This is a mystery series. There's strange stuff going on. There's this mysterious spirit of a girl wandering all around the Ryvius, and what does that mean? And of course that is explained. But I also, again, am impressed by the fact that much of that mystery isn't completely explained. You get explanations and you get people talking about things, but this is a story about characters, again, dealing as best they can with what they have. It's not really about explaining why all these things are the way they are. And there's still some mysteries about the Ryvius and why it works and why it chose these characters as its who it wants to sync with. And I think that's important, and I think it's something that we don't see that often, a show that reserves some mystery and reserves some strangeness to the universe that is just there and unexplained. There's a lot about the universe as to why these things exist. They just do. And then the story builds up to its big climax. And one thing that really blew me away about this series is that I got up to the next to the last episode, and I actually put Infinite Ryvius away for a while because I was really concerned about what was going to happen, and I was frankly worried that it would end badly. And I realized as I was thinking about it, I could see that show ending with everyone living. I could see it ending with everyone dying. And either ending felt like it would be totally appropriate to what had been set up. I think that is a mark of impressive skill and impressive craft on the part of the creators. That this is something that's really hard to do, to establish a show where you want everyone to live. They could all die, and you would be, if not okay with that, you would certainly understand why that would happen. So kudos to them for that. So those are some of the themes behind Infinite Ryvius. Of course, there's much more we could dig into, like the rape, but that's there, and that's something that's used as an inciting incident in the show, but it's just more of a plot point. If you have more thoughts on Ryvius, please post below. Frankly, I'm just hoping this video gets more people to watch this show, because it knocked my socks off. And yeah. And I really wish more people would watch it and talk about it and think about it, because there's a lot there to think about. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.